I genuinely can't believe how many projects I'm seeing about a picket fence being turned into a planter. And whilst that sounds great, if you want a project that's actually going to sell year after year, then I've got a treat for you. The best part with this, there's absolutely nothing difficult and minimal cost. And depending on how much effort you want to go into, you can either call this rustic and charge cheap, or you can put a bit more work in, create a premium model and get well over £120 per unit sold. Sound interesting? Then let's finish milling up this timber and see what we've got, and let's get on with the build. Now I genuinely don't know what this guy's smiling at. He had one job: catch the timber as it came out of the thicknesser. Looks like I'm going to have to pick all this up myself then. So now that we've got all our timber planed and nice and clean, it's time to make sure we've got some square edges. And if you're not sure on what I'm using yet, this is a load of leftover pallet wood. Again, another great project that uses pallet wood. The great thing is this will be going outside, so you don't need to worry about it looking all snazzy. Coat of paint's going to sort this out later. So after ripping all the boards down on one side, I come back, changing to the other side, making sure that I now have two parallel edges. It's a little bit tedious doing 20 boards, but once you get in the groove with a bit of music on, you soon forget what you're doing. That's the beauty about being in a workshop. Now to make sure everything's level, I like to clamp half a dozen boards together and stick them through the planer. As long as you make sure that that clamp is nice and low, you don't have anything to worry about, and you get some wonderfully smooth edges. Just saying, sometimes it's better to work smarter than it is harder. These squeezy clamps are getting a right workout today. Now I found for a glue up, it's better to clamp the boards together and put the glue on. That way you get less glue running in between all the boards. And for the glue up itself, the clamps I'm going to be using are my new ones from Banggood. These are some parallel clamps. Genuinely a great upgrade at a very good cost. I've got a video on them if you'd like to know a little bit more, and I'm sure I'll link it to the description if I remember. Now I always like to take a second to wipe down with a hot rag. It just makes sure that later on there's that little bit less cleanup to do. Now as my two panels dried, it was time to find something for the legs. I was struggling, so I had a quick look over my neighbour's fence and found just what I needed. Some leftover 3x1s. These will do nicely. I need two short ones for the front legs, two long ones for the back legs, and a number of pieces for the bracing in the middle. Now I am going to try show you how many pieces I need, but I miscounted. That's why it's always good when you're in your neighbour's garden just to help yourself to a few extra pieces. You never know where they're going to come in handy. So good job my neighbour's a good sport, isn't it? Now I've been working hard this last 6 months on my accuracy with my woodworking. Nailed it! So we've got the last couple of supports to make now, and I always find it good to mark with my left hand, because if I'm not accurate with my right, I definitely aren't with my left. This thing may need a slight miracle to be level. But there again, great thing with calling it rustic. It can also have a little bit of a wobble. Now this is a problem with accuracy. Just when you think you've nailed it, you miss. So you've got to keep practicing. Now here's the pieces that I've cut so far. The eagle-eyed amongst you later on in the video will realise I've not cut enough supports. But we can always remedy that. It's time to start putting the legs together, and I find using a firm surface behind, such as my pallet wall, really helps me keep everything nice and accurate, stops the wood from dancing around. A couple of pilot holes first to stop splitting, because we all know what this cheap pine's like, and it's time to drive in a few screws. I figured on this one, you might just like to know that my driver's brushless. because you certainly can't see any screws going in, but I can assure you there's 2 gone in absolutely perfectly, and this holds it really tight and secure. After doing the top support, it's time to go in to the bottom support as well. Again, I like to pre-drill everything, countersink where needed, and this stops you splitting later. Best to drill once than regret twice. I'm sure that's the saying, isn't it? Either which way, we're cracking on nicely with this. You're going to need 2 of these legs, 1 for either side. Funny that, kind of how legs work. Every woodworker values his time sanding, said absolutely nobody. These panels, because of the way they've been glued up, aren't too bad, so it was only a quick brisk over. We're back onto the table saw. I'm using the mitre gauge here because this allows me to get lovely parallel edges on a large panel glue up. Absolutely invaluable is this mitre gauge. I would highly recommend one. Once we have our panel down to its final dimensions, I need to make 2 circles to insert some balls. I always find, yes, you need to measure, but it's always good just to draw out the circles as well. Gives you a guide when you're setting up your circle jig, or even your circle jig. A top tip here is always to leave the drill bit in the wood. You just take your drill off. You can use that as your pivot point. The process itself is rather simple. You make 1 shallow pass all the way around, lower the bit, make another pass, lower the bit, and again until you go all the way through. This jig took me all of about 3 minutes to make 3 or 4 years ago, and I come back to it constantly. Such a good piece of kit and absolutely cost free. I do find sometimes though, once you get halfway through, it's good to just have a little break, clear out the dust. If you don't, all those wood chippings start to compact and then they start to burn as the bit comes round and digs into them again. Now you'll be able to tell when you're nearly through, and it's always best to go with 2 hands. Make sure you've got ultra control, because I can tell you if you don't, all that happens is that you end up with a big gouge in it. Nobody wants imperfection, even on a rustic project. With 1 done, it's time to get on to the second one. This is very much eat, sleep, rinse, repeat. Now this part's always important, not because it's more sanding, but these are the parts where little fingers are going to go in the future. No kid likes having a splinter without a tantrum. So do your customer a favour and make sure that this product is tantrum free. Sometimes for assembly I find it easier to do things upside down. There's nothing worse than trying to glue or screw the wrong way around. Couple of countersunk bits into here, and then we have got the front and top on. It's just time for the back. This is going to go on in 2 bits, a smaller bit, and then we're going to have a little bit of a feature to go on to the front. Can you tell what it is yet? For cutting my pieces to size, I find it easier sometimes to scribe instead of measure. The great thing with having to trim these down, it's going to give me another chance to check out the accuracy. Let's see how I'm doing now in this video. Whoa, oh, there we go. Now, did anyone figure out that this was going to be a shelf on the top? I certainly didn't right at the beginning, and this was a later addition into my design. It wasn't because I mismeasured the size of the back panel. That never ever happened. But the great thing about projects like this, especially when we're saying I'm one of a kind, is that we can go in and make any alterations that we need to. And with the shelf in place, we need a little bit of storage on the bottom. We've padded the front out with a couple more leftover boards. This has made everything lovely and sturdy. It's time for a final sand before going on to paint. Now I'm going to show you a little trick in a second, and it's a way to double your money by doing hardly any work. For paint, I always like to go dark. That way you can have something on the front of it that really pops, whether that be some utensils, or like I'm going to do shortly, which is personalising this for the customer's daughter. And it's really important that you do the back and the underside, including the bottom of the feet, to help make it as waterproof as possible. So for the personalisation, I'm going to use my laser to make a sign for the front. But fear not, when I first started making these, I used to buy some stencils online and use them as a guide for painting. $1.99 got you 5 stencils that you could use time and time again. Easy peasy. Just get something like a unicorn or some sort of cute cuddly animal. You can then, if you really want, freehand somebody's name. I'm lucky, I've managed to work my way up to having a great laser. So with a pop of colour, this project's just about done. It's time to go in and have a look at those beauty shots. So the utensils and coloured bowls set me back a grand total of $2.99. That took my expenditure on this project to $2.99. Considering that these go in my area for anywhere between £40 for a cheap one and £120 for a really exclusive one. Better than Planters, and people will refer all their friends year after year.